these 5 values. We're Jesus-centered, research-based, trauma-informed, diverse, affirming, and inclusive. And we're going to find out what it looks like to build a church. We've been doing that for almost a year. Last Christmas, we were in Lisa's driveway doing this. And it was so much fun. Yeah, it was a blast. It rained. And so we moved from the driveway to the garage to pull off this particular event. But I'm very grateful for each and every one of you. As I said, it's a real honor to me to say Merry Christmas to you all. And so, looking over the past year, I just want to say thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to all the people who helped pull off the holiday fair. That was incredible. Thank you all very much. Yeah, that's right. Give it up. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being here tonight. If you're new to Dwell Church, find a QR code, click that, get connected to Dwell. And especially if you're new, make sure you grab one of our complimentary pint glasses on the table in the back. It's got some goodies in there for you too. My main job, though, today is to reflect with you about the power and the meaning of Christmas. I've noticed something in my last 15 or so years of marriage about a particular theme, a particular way of approaching Christmas. And I'm going to try and see if my clicker here works and to discuss this particular way of doing Christmas. Let's see. Me too. Come on. Clicker. Nope. All right, Eddie, hit it for me, buddy. Okay, this is my living room today, this morning. The most amazing thing in this picture to me is this large pile of presents underneath it. There's a very specific reason there's a large pile of presents underneath it. And it's that my wife is amazing. Every single day since December 1st, she has wrapped a few presents. I call it stress wrapping, where the day has been miserable and you want to get a few of those out of the way. So she's been piling those suckers up. I did none of that. She wrapped every single one of those since December 1st. Growing up, my dad would sometimes, we just did it really differently. Sometimes my dad would show up to the Christmas tree on Christmas morning and he would hand a piece of unboxed camping equipment to myself or my sister or to my mom. And then he would say, I bet you can guess what he would say. We'll say it together. I didn't have time to wrap it. He said that every Christmas to me and every birthday. I try to split the difference, where I show up on Christmas morning to the Christmas tree, I'm huffing and puffing, I have tape in my hair, but the Christmas presents are wrapped, and I can hand them to somebody else to unwrap. Now here's the joy of wrapping them early on, is that everyone in the household can wonder, is one of those presents for me? So my daughter, Margot, sometimes will go into the tree and pull one out and weigh its heft, and she'll slip her fingers into the seam to see if she can get any clue as to what is in there. And yesterday she picked one up and it was big and she shook it and he said, I bet this is a set of beads for necklaces, a 2,000-piece bead set. And I'm hoping it is not that. Because we got her a 1,000-bead set a couple of years ago and it spilled and we had to move out of that house. You cannot clean that up. So you start to dream, you start to wonder, is one of these gifts for me? It matters when you wrap the gift, and it matters where you place it. See, sometimes it occurs to me to keep the gift a secret, to put it in the closet, to put it up on the shelf, or maybe I will forget it, so that maybe if I do remember, on Christmas morning I come out and see, hey, surprise gift for my loved one. But here I have learned, if you wrap them early, gosh, you can dream. It matters where you put the gift. And that's what we're going to think about for a little bit as we continue our Christmas reflection. I thought we would read the passage from Luke that Sophia so beautifully read for us. Yes, Sophia, where are you? This time I'm going to read from the New International Version. And what I want you to do is to listen for words that repeat themselves. There's a scholar, I think the world's foremost New Testament scholar, named Tom Wright, and his first name is actually Nicholas, so tonight, for the duration of this talk, we'll be calling him St. Nick. And St. Nick said that sometimes we miss the point of a Bible story. And he uses this metaphor by saying, you have seen a dog, and maybe a dog in your household. When you point out something to a dog, oh, this is my dog, this is Demi, here she is. When you try to point something out to a dog, they just stare at you. In fact, it's worse with Demi. When I try to point out a morsel on the floor, she walks slowly over to me and bites my pointing finger. Because dogs have a loose relationship to what pointing means. And Tom Wright has told us we have the same problem when we read the Bible. We have the same problem when we read Luke chapter 2. It's pointing to something, and we can't always discern exactly what it is. So I'm going to read Luke chapter 2, and you will know what this story is pointing to by the word that repeats itself the most. Here we go. Luke chapter 2. You listen for what words repeat. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire world so that it might be taxed. This was the first census and taxation that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their hometown to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married with him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. And she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you great news that will cause great joy for all people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you, that you find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger." And suddenly a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angels, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heavens, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." When the angels had left them and gone to heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go to Bethlehem and see this thing which happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby who was lying in the manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told to them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. And if you're wondering if the word that is repeated several times is taxes, I'm going to humbly ask you to get your mind off your money for a minute. The word is manger. And it isn't just any manger. We sometimes wrongly think of the manger as a cutesy detail, maybe in a ceramic set or an illumined statue or in front of an old grandma's house right in our neighborhood. We have one right on the corner. And I love this nativity scene. It glows brightly all through the night. And the manger is a cute and wonderful part of that. Sometimes we think of it as a nostalgic bit, a symbol, something for a postcard. But no, the manger is to be a sign to you, is what the shepherds tell them. So the manger is a powerful and loaded symbol, laden with meaning about the purpose of Christmas. One of the ways we think about the manger, one of the powerful bits of symbolism in this passage is maybe that it is symbolic, it is loaded with meaning for Mary and for Joseph. They have laid their beautiful firstborn son in this place where animals feed. You might imagine for them that this is a moment symbolic of the ways life has not worked out for them, the way life has not gone the way that they expected it to. And the text leaves us wondering, why is this descendant of a famous person in his hometown without any place to go? Why is it that they are alone on Christmas? Is it an insult? Is it a broken relationship? Is it a pain point in their lives? The text does not clue us in, but make no mistake, they are alone on Christmas. And the manger is a symbol of all of that. One of the ways the manger is a powerful symbol is a symbol to the entire world. You see, followers of Jesus believed that one day this Jesus would be king. And so his birth in a manger is a symbol of exactly what kind of child this is and exactly what kind of king he will become. It is a humble beginning. Artfully, Luke chapter 2, many have recognized, contrasts the king, baby Jesus, lying in a manger with Caesar Augustus, the king of Rome, the emperor, mentioned in the first chapter. See, if you know your Roman history, you know that Caesar Augustus fought a enormous, bloody civil war to be the emperor of Rome. And you know that his opponent in that civil war took his own life on the eve of victory because Mark Antony knew with a king like that, there is no hope for one like You may know that Caesar Augustus was the one who took Rome from a republic to the empire that we know it as. This was the most famous, most wealthy, maybe most violent man alive at the time. And here he is contrast with the humble, with the true king. Remarkably, in Matthew's telling of the story, there are wise men who come from the entire world, and this is another great contrast. You see, Caesar is taxing the entire world. What a delusion of grandeur that you could count everyone and tax them. But what Caesar intends to get by force, Jesus, happens naturally to him through adoration and love. In the form of the three wise men, the whole world come to offer their gifts to this King Jesus. You see, Jesus, gosh, was a humble kind of king. Caesar was the kind of king who sacrificed many others' lives for his own good, and yet Jesus was the kind of king who sacrificed his own life for his followers. See, the manger is symbolic in that it points to the cross, and the cross is symbolic because it points to who God is, that Jesus' kingdom would be driven by self-sacrificial love. And there's a third way that the manger is symbolic. See, in the 3rd and 4th century, before the fall of Rome, there were lots of Christians who lived quite wealthy in Rome, and they felt like the busyness and opulence of this city is clouding our spirit, clouding our hearts, so that we cannot hear properly from Jesus. And so they went out into the desert. They formed these communities where they would live alone, and they would think, and they would meditate. They would come together for meals or for holidays, and they thought and they prayed inside caves in the desert. And one of them wrote about how the real mystery, the real meaning of the nativity scene is that the manger is you. You see, God's great ambition for your life and for my life is that the peace and joy we just sang about which the angels proclaim, that it would one day come to reside within you. Somehow the manger is symbolic that God has fully joined us, has fully come to us, to dwell within us. The great invitation to you in your life is to have the power and presence of this humble King Jesus live within you. Again, in Matthew's telling of the story, the angels say that he will be called Emmanuel, God with us. And with is that great Christmas word. What is Christmas really truly about? It is Jesus' fulfilled promise to be with you. Now, of course, for some people, we have not always felt the lived presence of Jesus. And maybe you've had that experience of being physically present but emotionally absent. And there's a name for people who are physically present and emotionally absent, and it's husbands. And my wife has trained me that when we're at dinner and I'm not responding to her questions, and she says, "What are you thinking about?" I am to always say, "Not sports." Very important. Because it is easy for lots of kinds of people to be physically present but emotionally absent. And the presence of Jesus coming to us suggests to us that something very similar happens to us spiritually, that we are physically present but spiritually absent to the reality that Jesus has promised to be with us. And so I wonder, for those of you who came tonight, just so glad to be celebrating Christmas, many years under your belt as a happy follower of Jesus, what would it be like, just as an experiment, to start to imagine that there is no room you could walk into where Jesus is not present? There is no place in your life where Jesus would not be with you. What would it be like for you to embrace that amazing promise? Gosh, but I also know there are people who are surprised to find themselves here, who are dragged here possibly by a family member. And you may not think of yourself as religious or even as spiritual. Oh, and I wonder what it would be like for you, just as an experiment, to say, Jesus, what if you really were who you said you would be? What if just for the next month, or even just for the next week, or maybe just tomorrow, to say, Jesus, if you really are present, would you help me to become spiritually available in this room with you? Would you maybe even speak to me? John's telling of the birth of Jesus, he says he is the Word incarnate. See, God promised to speak to you. And Jesus is the tone of voice he will take when he does so. Later in John's telling of the story, he says that Jesus is the true light that gives life to everyone, and it's coming into the world. In a moment together, we are going to light these things on fire, and if, gosh, you're under 15 years old, this is the main event. The bounce house is nice. This is what we've all been waiting for. If you're under 35, this is the main event for you. But as the line of lit candles comes your way, this is your chance, a moment for you to say, true light, who gives light to everyone, would you arrive into my life? And maybe that is never a thought that you have thought before. Maybe that is a thought you think all the time. But here is a chance for you, symbolically, with open flame in your hand, to say, light of Jesus, whatever it means, would you arrive into my life and into my heart? I'm going to pray for you. And we're going to sing a little more and light these things on fire. Jesus, would you arrive into the lives of these people? Thank you that you are faithful to your promise to be with us. And God, would you work in our hearts, in our minds, wherever we have come from, whatever we believe, would you work in our hearts and our minds in such a way where we could receive the promise of your hope and your joy. This strange promise that means that we are never alone. God, would you show us how to embrace that? And we're grateful that every single year, in some way, all over the world, people who don't even believe in you, who have never even heard this story, get to celebrate something called Christmas because you are the light that came into the world to give life to all of us. Jesus, we're deeply grateful. Would you work in us and speak to us? Amen.